I should have left when the clock hit 2:03 a.m. That was the last moment the speakers went quiet. I've been home for 5 nights now, and every one of them sounds the same. The hum, the crackle, that soft layer of static that creeps in when everything else stops. I can't sleep anymore. I just sit here with the recorder on, hoping it'll stay quiet long enough for me to finish this. My name's Frank Adler, Maintenance Division C, Altoona Station, Pennsylvania. Night shift. Always night shift. I check the lights, the tracks, the intercom system. If something hums too long or flickers the wrong way, I fix it. That's the job. Or it was, until the night it turned on me. I'm not making this for attention. I don't care if no one believes me. I just need a record. Something to leave behind in case someone else takes the same shift. The signal isn't gone. I hear it through the vents, the fridge, even the damn phone charger. It's in the wiring. It waits for the hour. Hank Brower trained me when I started, 15 years back. He was the kind of man who said rules like prayers. Always steady, always calm. But there was one thing he never joked about. Never answer the intercom after the last call. He said it the first week I met him, like it was just company policy. I didn't ask why. We all have our superstitions, right? Things we do out of habit, not fear. I used to think that rule was just about energy-saving protocols or avoiding false signals. I was wrong. The first time the station spoke back, I thought it was feedback, some cross-line glitch. But it said my name. Perfectly. Same tone, same breath pattern, right down to the pause I take before I speak. I shut off the system, pulled the breakers, and still heard it faintly through the walls. I've been running the logs, checking the lines. Everything's clean. But every night since, at 2:03, the static comes alive. Like it's waiting for me to talk first. That's why I'm recording this. I want someone to know how it started. Maybe the next guy will recognize the signs sooner. Maybe he'll listen to Hank. I don't know what that voice wants. It's not asking questions anymore. It just listens. And I guess that's where I should start. The night everything went off pattern. The nights at Altoona Station always start the same. Cold air pushes through the cracks in the platform doors, carrying that smell of rust and oil that never really leaves your clothes. The sodium lights hum above the empty tracks, painting everything in the same shade of tired yellow. If you stand still long enough, you can feel the whole building breathing. Metal expanding, air shifting, wires vibrating like veins. That sound used to calm me. Routine keeps me sane. Every night I clock in, log the systems, and make the same walk from the office to the far end of the platform. It's a 5-minute path if you don't stop to listen. I always do. The wind runs through the rails like a low note from a broken instrument. Freight trains pass miles away, their horns stretching across the valley. The echoes reach us late, soft and steady. It's the kind of loneliness that feels organized, predictable. I used to like that. I keep a small notebook in my jacket. Every flicker, every hum, every voltage drop goes in there. The old circuits complain in the cold, but I know their rhythm. I could tell if a bulb was about to go before it even dimmed. At night, patterns are everything. Break the pattern and you start to lose your sense of what's real. Sometimes, I think Altoona never really sleeps. You just stop hearing the noise after a while. The substation hum blends with the wind. The metal shifts with the temperature. Even the silence has its own tone. You can measure time by sound here. I used to joke that the clocks were just decoration. Now, I wish that were true. By 1:30 a.m., I'm usually at the intercom booth running the test sequence. The voice kicks in automatically. Same line every night. Last train to Pittsburgh arriving at 1:42 a.m. The system checks the speakers one by one. North platform, south platform, maintenance tunnel. The voice is calm, female, maybe mid-30s if you try to guess the personality behind it. Clear, neutral, never off tempo. We called her the speaker. Hank used to joke that she was the only one who ever showed up on time. Sometimes, when I'm tired, I talk back to her, just a word or two. Never during protocol, though. Hank's rule always sat in the back of my head: never answer the intercom after the last call. I never understood why he said it like that. Not, don't use the intercom, but don't answer it. As if something could call first. Tonight, the platform was colder than usual. The wind came from the west, carrying the smell of rain. My flashlight caught the dust hanging in the air like smoke. I made another round through the maintenance hall, past the vending machines that hadn't worked in years. My boots left perfect prints in the dust. No one else had been here since the last shift. "Grant, you copy?" I asked into the radio. A crackle came through, followed by Grant's voice, sleepy, distant, half amused. "Yeah, Adler. You still alive out there?" I smiled faintly at the static. "Just checking the lines. Thought I heard a relay pop." He let out a short laugh, the kind that buzzed through cheap speakers. "That place always pops. It's older than both of us. You got voltage drop?" I glanced at the monitor, pen tapping the clipboard. None, just noise. The radio hissed again before he replied, slower this time. "Then you're fine. Keep logging. And hey, get some coffee. You sound half dead." The transmission ended with a soft click. His laughter faded into static that lingered longer than it should have. I lowered the radio and stared at the blinking signal light until it went dark. When you work nights, the silence becomes company. You start to talk to things that don't talk back. The walls, the switches, the voice in the system. Sometimes I'd find myself narrating what I was doing out loud just to fill the space. I figured that's how people start believing their buildings are haunted. Too much time alone with the echoes. At 1:40, the system beeped, right on schedule. I leaned on the counter, waiting for the voice. The hum built up through the wires, that little rise of static before the words. It always made me think of someone clearing their throat before speaking. Last train to Pittsburgh arriving at 1:42 a.m. Everything sounded normal. The signal light flicked green. I marked the log, wrote down the voltage. Routine. I almost didn't notice the delay, maybe half a second, before the voice spoke again. "Please remain seated. The inspection is not complete." I froze. That line wasn't in the schedule. The script file hadn't changed in years. I waited for the automated chime that usually follows. Nothing. Just the hum of the system. Then silence. I stared at the control screen. All indicators normal. No playback, no updates, no secondary broadcast. "Grant, this is Adler. You reading me?" The radio crackled, a dry burst of static before Grant's voice came through. Slow, lazy, like he'd just sat up in bed. "Yeah, Frank. Everything's green here. What's up?" I rubbed my eyes, staring at the screen. "Did you update the message rotation?" There was a short pause, then the same easy tone. "Not since last quarter. Why?" I glanced at the mic, trying to make sure I'd heard myself right. The speaker added a line, something about an inspection. Grant chuckled, his voice fuzzing through the static. "Maybe she's bored. Go home early, Adler. You're talking to code." The line clicked off. The silence that followed felt too clean. I kept looking at the mic, half expecting the system to breathe again. It didn't. The lights buzzed above me like they always did. For a long moment I stood there, convincing myself I'd imagined it. The brain fills in gaps when it's too quiet. That's what I told myself. Still, I rewound the system logs. Nothing out of place. Every channel clean. I checked the speakers manually, one by one, walked the platform, listening for the hum. Every unit worked, every cable secure. The only thing that didn't fit was the air. It felt heavier, like static before a storm. Halfway through the second platform, I thought I heard something. A soft, double click, like a mic opening. I froze. No voice followed, just the faint ring of metal settling. I stood there longer than I should have, waiting for it to happen again. It didn't. But when I looked down at the notepad in my hand, I realized my pencil line had trailed off into a curve, like I'd been writing through a tremor. I made my way back to the booth, my own footsteps echoing louder than usual. The monitor glow was the only real light left. The clock above it read 2:03 a.m. exactly. The second hand trembled, just a fraction, then stopped. I tapped the glass once. It didn't move. Outside, the wind had died. The entire station went still. That's when I realized the hum, the one constant sound that filled every night, was gone. No speakers, no wires, just air. I should have left right then, but the quiet felt expectant, like someone waiting for me to break it. I stood there, counting my own breaths, pretending the pattern hadn't changed. The next night felt heavier from the start. The sky pressed low over Altoona, fog hanging between the lampposts like wet cloth. I could smell the rails before I reached the platform. Iron, cold, and something faintly electrical, like burnt dust. I clocked in, checked the breakers, logged the voltage. Everything normal. The control panel glowed faint green under the dim lights, the kind of light that makes everything look sick. The speaker was silent. Too silent. Usually she warmed up with a test line when the system booted. Tonight, not a sound. System check channel 1. I set it more to fill the space than to test anything. Static hissed, then died. Nothing else. I wrote it down anyway. 1:58 in the morning, static, no playback. The air felt charged. Even my pen's metal clip stung my fingers. By 2 o'clock, the lights flickered once. Just once. Then the first sound hit. A low pop from the speakers along the north platform. It wasn't the usual hum. It sounded wet, muffled, like a throat clearing underwater. I leaned closer to the console. The system lights blinked in sequence, one by one, as if something was manually triggering each zone. Then the voice came back. Last train to Pittsburgh, arriving at 1:42 a.m. Same words, but the tone was wrong. Slower. Dragged out. Like the recording was fighting through mud. The Pittsburgh part came out warped, like a tape stretched too far. Then, after a long breath of silence, it said it again. Only lower. I didn't even press the button. Grant, you hearing this? I pressed the radio, voice shaking. Nothing. Not even static. I watched the indicator lights crawl across the panel. North platform, south. Then the tunnel feed blinked red, just for a second. That feed was disconnected years ago. I felt my pulse tick up. I turned the intercom volume down halfway, but the voice stayed the same. Clear, as if it were whispering from behind the wall. Please remain seated. The inspection is not complete. My throat tightened. I stepped back and looked at the main monitor. The system log showed no audio output. The timestamp froze on 2:03 in the morning. I scrolled the entries again, then again. Still blank. I put on my coat and went out to the platform. The air outside hit me like a slap. Wet, cold, thick. The yellow lights hummed overhead, buzzing faintly. The station stretched into fog, the tracks vanishing a few feet past the last bench. One of the overhead lights blinked twice and died. Then the next one came on by itself. They turned on in sequence. 1, 2, 3. Each light humming to life like something walking beneath them. I tried to laugh. I told myself it was the motion sensors. But there was no motion. No passengers. Not even birds. "Never check the platform lights alone," Hank used to say. He'd grin when he said it, but the kind of grin that never reached the eyes. I'd laughed it off then. Now it sounded less like advice and more like a warning I'd already broken. I followed the light trail anyway, walking slow. The last bulb flickered near the yellow safety line. The air smelled metallic, sharp. I heard something, just a small shift, like shoes on gravel. I turned my flashlight toward the end of the platform. Someone was standing there. A tall shape in the fog, shoulders drawn, facing the tracks. I raised the light higher. The beam hit the yellow edge, caught the outline of a coat, but no face. The figure didn't move, didn't even breathe. My hand tightened around the flashlight. "Sir? Station's closed, you can't be here." No answer, just the faint hum of the lights. I took a slow step forward. The figure tilted its head, just a little. Enough to make my chest lock up. Then, without sound, it turned and walked straight into the fog. The last light shut off as it passed beneath it. I stayed frozen until the cold bit through my gloves. Then I forced myself forward, one step at a time, until I reached the end of the platform. Nothing. Just wet concrete and the faint smell of oil. My radio hissed suddenly. I jumped, dropping the flashlight. It rolled toward the tracks, its beam spinning circles across the ground. "Frank." The voice came through the speaker system, not the radio. Soft. Familiar. It came from the platform intercom behind me. I turned slowly. The red indicator light blinked once. The voice repeated. "Frank." "Grant? Is that you?" My voice cracked as I reached for the switch. "Grant, come on! Answer me!" Silence. Then a burst of distortion, like laughter slowed down to half speed. I ripped the cord from the wall. The sound didn't stop. It just bled through the metal casing, a low vibration that crawled into the air. I ran back to the control booth. The door slammed behind me on its own. Or maybe I kicked it. I don't remember. My hands shook as I pulled up the camera feeds. Every screen flickered gray, filled with fog and grain. I cycled through them one by one until I hit the south platform view. Someone stood there, still, facing the camera. The same outline as before, same coat, same height. I zoomed in. The image distorted, lines bending like heat waves. The face flickered, coming into focus for a second. It was me. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my teeth. The reflection me blinked once, then the feed cut to static. I sat there, frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe. "Grant?" I whispered into the radio again. "If you're there, tell me you see this." Nothing. Just the low hum returning through the vents. I tried to shut down the system, but the power switch jammed halfway. I pulled the breaker. It sparked, but stayed on. The monitors dimmed to black, one by one, until only the middle screen glowed faint white. A faint outline still flickered in the center. Mine, standing at the edge of the tracks. I watched until the glow faded. Then the speaker came back on. So soft, I almost missed it. "Last train to Pittsburgh arriving." The voice dragged the last word until it broke into static. The sound spread through the control room, filling every vent, every wire. I could feel it inside my chest, humming against my ribs. I shut my eyes, counted to 10, and it finally stopped. When I opened them, the control clock was still frozen at 2:03 a.m. The second hand twitched once, then rested. I wrote that time down in the log. I didn't know why. Maybe I needed proof that it wasn't just in my head. Or maybe I was already trying to make sense of something that didn't belong to sense anymore. The next week became a ledger. If I couldn't stop what was happening, I could at least name it and measure it. That's how you keep machines obedient. You learn their rhythm, and you write it down until your hands remember it. Night 1 after the disturbance, I arrived early. Wind had scraped the valley clean. Altoona's platforms looked overbright under the sodium lamps. I powered the console, ran diagnostics twice, and kept my notebook open beside the voltmeter. If there was going to be a pattern, I needed to earn it, not imagine it. At 1:38 in the morning, the speaker performed perfectly. Last train to Pittsburgh arriving at 1:42 a.m. 1:57. 1:58. 1:59. I watched the second-hand cross. 2:03 in the morning, and the quiet thickened like wax. Nothing else happened. Night 2, I doubled down. I moved a backup recorder to the console and set a pocket recorder in the maintenance hall near the dead vending machines. I wanted to hear the building without me in it. I would not answer any intercom. Hank's warning sat behind my teeth like a splinter. Never answer the intercom after the last call. Everything stayed textbook. The announcement ran, rails hummed, the transformer purred. I kept my name out of the room. 2:03 arrived like a needle point. Again, quiet pressed down, 3 counts long, then the hum returned. I wrote it. 2:03, stillness, 3 count. Relief shook me harder than fear. Machines behave when you treat them like they have rules. Maybe that was all this was. For 2 nights, the station respected the list. Routine came back like a stray dog that remembered the hand that fed it. I stayed off the platform after 2. I logged the silence at 2:03. I never keyed the intercom. I did not say my name out loud. On the 3rd night, the bass line vanished. The substation tone, the note everything sits on, went missing the way a floor disappears under a dream. Without it, my inner ear pitched forward. I could hear my boots creak when I shifted weight. I could hear the clock more than I could see it. I shut down what I could. Non-essential lights off. Intercom master gain to 0. Every local station disabled. The tunnel feed breaker open. By the book, nothing could speak. I set the pocket recorder on the console and hit record. My own voice sounded borrowed when I logged the time. I didn't like hearing it anymore. It made me feel like I was teaching the room how to imitate me. 2:03 in the morning. The booth contracted like lungs at the end of an exhale. Then the speaker came alive with the power off. It wasn't a voice, it was a shape pretending to be one. Words landed with weight, as if the air had been cut into syllables. The sound didn't come from grills or cones. It came from around me, like language being spelled across glass and screws and wire skin. I reached for the breaker and found my hand stalling midair, as if a gentle palm rested on my forearm, steadying me away from a mistake. "Grant," I said into the radio, barely above breath. "Grant, if you're awake, respond." I looked up at the rules taped over the console and read them under my breath like someone apologizing in advance. Rule 1. Don't answer the intercom after the last call. Rule 2. If the platform lights turn on by themselves, stay inside. Rule 3. If you hear your name from the speakers, shut down all systems within 10 seconds. Frank, the inspection's not over. I shut down everything that would shut. Relays rattled like teeth in a glass. The room didn't get quieter, it got more detailed. I could hear the heat in the fluorescent ballast throb. I could hear the station breathe through the vents, the slow inhale of night wind and dust. "I'm not answering," I said, not into a mic, just to the air. "I'm not answering you." Silence held. Then the platform lights stepped on by themselves. 1, 2, 3, stopping at the yellow line. The camera feed woke to gray, then grain, then the oily shimmer of fog. I stayed in the booth. Distance is armor if you believe in it hard enough. The whisper sounded curious. 10 seconds buys nothing unless you spend it. I counted down and killed the console's main power. The room fell dark. The monitors faded like ice. The center screen kept a ghost of its image. Platform, fog, a suggestion of a figure at the edge of the frame. The suggestion stared back. The pocket recorder's red LED stayed alive. I could hear my breath on the tape as if I were standing across from myself. "Grant, if you're on frequency, this is Adler. I need a clear to shut the building." The radio gave me what a machine never should. A long inhale held too long, then a soft exhale, as if someone tried not to be heard breathing. I put the radio down and picked up the notebook. If writing was the only tool left, I'd use it fast. I dated the page, marked the hour, sketched the platform light sequence, listed systems already down. I left space for a fourth rule because the space had arrived before the words. I didn't turn. I watched the window's reflection in the dead console glass. A dark smudge leaned toward me in the reflection. An almost face. Fogging the reflection, but not the real pain. "Frank, the inspection's not over." This time the whisper knew where to place the breath between inspection and is. My ribs tried to match it. I pressed my tongue to my teeth to shock my voice back into my own timing. I reached under the desk for the emergency cutoff nobody labels because nobody uses it, and pulled it. The booth died for real. The station beyond kept breathing, but my room became a sealed, dumb box inside a larger organism. The whisper didn't care. It kept its shape without speakers, without gain, without line. It had learned me. "You're not a system," I said. Not as accusation, but as inventory. A thing to be shelved so the other shelves wouldn't fall. "You're not a system." The breath drew closer. Not footsteps. The idea of distance removed. My pulse climbed into my mouth. I opened the booth door. The corridor was ink. The platform wore its fog like a coat. The lights that had come on stayed on. The yellow edge shone damp and patient. I stood exactly in the frame, half in, half out, where the rules could still argue about which world owned me. The center monitor, clinging to its pale ghost, brightened by a degree. The figure at the edge of the frame resolved by a hair. I knew that posture. I knew that weight across the heels. I knew the way the shoulders settled when a man listens instead of speaks. I closed the door and sat. I wrote the line my hand already knew. The whisper ceased. The platform lights clicked off backward. 3, 2, 1. Like something going home by the path it came. I stayed until the substation tone returned with the small comfort of a coin finding the bottom of a glass of water. Normal noises sounded counterfeit. I logged them anyway, afraid if I didn't, the building would write the entries for me in a hand I'd recognize and hate. At home, I tried the trick I'd been trying all week. Radio off, speakers unplugged, charger out of the wall. I lay awake and listened to the house argue with temperature, like old bones. The first sound was the intake before a word. Not in the walls, not in the wires, in the room. "Frank." I didn't answer. I wrote the time on an index card and slid it into my pocket like a ticket to a place I no longer deserved to visit. I added a note under Rule 4 before the shift even began. A caption under a photograph I didn't remember taking. Rule 5. If it follows you home, pretend you didn't notice. Then write everything down before it learns your handwriting. By the hour's approach, I had the radio tuned to a dead channel for clean static. The kind that belongs to physics, not to the part of the world that loves you enough to ruin you. I kept my fingers on the console, feeling electricity tremble where it shouldn't with the breaker open. The minute came. The breath came. The room shaped itself into my name and waited for agreement. I counted to 10. I shut what I could shut. I wrote what I could write. Somewhere between the counting and the writing, science thinned into superstition and the light showed through. There were rules. I just didn't write them fast enough. The first failure started as a whisper in the machinery. One of those tiny mechanical coughs you only notice because you've memorized the silence. I'd been logging voltage shifts since midnight. Every number was steady, until the board flashed red across every channel at once. The system said it was a synchronization error. That's the kind of lie machines tell before they die. No, I muttered, leaning over the console. You don't get to do that tonight. Every speaker zone had flipped to active, even the tunnel feed, the same line that had been disconnected for years. I tried to override manually. No response. The diagnostics window looped itself in a feedback circle, screen to screen, until every monitor was showing the same frozen timestamp. 2:03 in the morning. The booth lights dimmed, surged, then locked in an orange pulse that matched my heartbeat. It was so quiet that even the glass started to tick. Grant, this is Adler. I've got a full system recursion here. You reading me? Static. Then a hiss that dragged too long to be signal noise. The board rebooted itself. I didn't touch a thing. Every light turned green. The screen displayed one command in blinking text. Run full audio test. Rule 3 said never to power everything at once, but the system wasn't asking. It was demanding. If I didn't comply, the failsafe would lock me out of controls completely. The logic was simple. Test it or lose it. You win. I keyed the main. The sound hit like pressure, not noise. Every speaker in Altoona Station came alive a fraction of a second apart, just enough lag to build a wall of echo that folded back on itself. Words collapsed into reverb, then into tone, then into something that had never been words at all. Last train to Pittsburgh arriving at 1:42 a.m. The phrase bounced around the building like a trapped bird, each repetition a little slower, a little more human. Layers stacked on layers until it stopped sounding like her. Until it started sounding like me. I killed the command key. Nothing changed. The voice kept coming, spilling from every wall and vent and pipe, my name tangled inside it. Frank, Frank, Frank. Each one slightly behind the other, chasing the echo. My stomach turned as the delay shortened, until they aligned in perfect unison. My own voice filled the room. Don't look at him. The words weren't mine, not now, but they wore my tone, my breath, my hesitation. I felt them vibrate through my ribs before I heard them. I grabbed the emergency override on instinct. The switch burned cold under my fingers. Nothing shut off. The air trembled. The windows flexed like something was breathing behind them. Cameras flickered alive without my command. The center monitor caught my eye. Someone was standing outside the booth, back turned, just beyond the reflection of the glass. The camera zoomed in on its own. The figure tilted its head toward the lens. It was me. Not a reflection, not static burn. My uniform, my posture, the scar on my wrist from the welding torch. Except, the other me was breathing heavier, shoulders rising too fast, like it was running in place. Don't look at him. The voice again, same tone, same delay, now leaking from every speaker. It wasn't warning me, it was sinking me. I reached for the breaker under the desk. The floor pulsed once under my boots, a low bass thud that rattled the air ducts. Then every light in the station fired at full brightness, pure white, then cut to black. The switchboards glowed faintly blue from residual current. I could still hear the echo, whispering through the dark like it had learned how to breathe without sound. The camera feeds shimmered, white outlines of the platform, of me, of not me. "Grant, this is Adler. Do not respond to my signal. Copy that? Do not!" The microphone shrieked mid-word. My ears rang so hard the world bent inward. The air felt solid, heavy enough to grab. Then the feed stabilized for a moment, long enough for me to see both of us on the monitors. Me inside the booth, and the other me standing at the yellow line, staring straight up at the camera. He raised his hand. My hand. The motion mirrored perfectly, except I hadn't moved yet. The voice filled every corner again, overlapping layers of my own voice like an unending confession caught in delay. "Frank, stay inside. Frank, stay inside. Frank, Frank." The sound bent. The low tones shook the foundation. Dust fell from the vents. I could feel the screws in the console vibrating loose. I shouted just to hear my own breath. "Stop! Stop! Stop!" But even that word came back wrong, late, from too many directions. I clamped my palms over my ears. It didn't help. Sound travels through bone. The glass door behind me began to rattle. Then it pounded, once, twice, like something hitting from the other side in perfect sync with the audio loops. The booth felt like a drum skin stretched too tight. "Frank." It wasn't coming from the speakers anymore. It came from under the desk. The voice crawled through the cable conduit, a whisper wearing lungs. I backed away. The room pulsed again, low, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. One of the monitors flashed white, then another. They flickered in pattern, left to right, until the sequence looped back, faster each time. The echo aligned with the flicker, like the building was stuttering through a sentence. "Grant, shut it down, pull the feed!" No reply. Only the sound of the echo folding over itself, building pressure. The glass began to hum. I could see the surface shimmer, the reflection of my face splitting into dozens, all a fraction late, all moving wrong. "Don't look at him." The other me outside the booth had lifted his head. The lights flickered across his face. It wasn't a face anymore, just the suggestion of mine, skin stretched too smooth, eyes too deep. He mouthed words that didn't sync with the sound, like he was lagging behind the echo. "You're not me." He tilted his head again, same as before. The echo mimicked it, a hiss on repeat. Every speaker in the building joined in, feedback howling through the vents, melting into one endless tone. My fillings buzzed, my nose bled. The lights strobed white, black, white. The booth windows flexed outward, the air shimmered like heat. I hit the last resort, master reset. For a heartbeat, silence. Then everything spoke at once. The entire station erupted. Every intercom, every hidden speaker, even the maintenance radios. My voice, their voice, layered until language broke down into vibration. "Last train to Pittsburgh arriving at 1:42 a.m. Please remain seated. The inspection is not complete. Frank." I fell to my knees. The floor shook like something underneath it was moving, crawling, stretching against concrete. The echo was no longer sound, it was physical. I felt it beating through my chest, syncing my pulse to its rhythm. The lights burst back on. The booth glowed orange-red. On the monitors, I saw movement. Myself, standing outside the control room door, eyes fixed forward, mouth open. The camera zoomed again, like the system wanted me to look. The other me stepped closer to the camera until the frame filled with my face. The lips moved. "Don't look at him." The glass cracked, a perfect line from corner to corner. The sound bent inward, a pressure collapse. A single note so low it hit bone instead of air. I felt my knees give out. The last thing I saw was the other me's mouth forming a word I never said. And then, black. But even inside the dark, the echo didn't stop. It learned how to survive without the station, without the power, without me. It just kept breathing. I woke up in a white room that hummed. Not loud, just enough to sit behind everything else. The kind of hum that hides in fluorescent lights or inside your own head. I thought I was still in the booth until the smell told me otherwise. Antiseptic, plastic, and hospital laundry. The nurse said they found me on the floor near the control room door. She said my ears had bled. Said I was lucky to be alive. I didn't ask who they were. Altoona doesn't have night staff anymore, not since the budget cuts. Somebody else must have heard the alarm, but no one claimed they did. The doctors called it acoustic trauma. Both eardrums torn, partial hearing loss, chronic tinnitus. They said the ringing might fade with time, or it might not. I didn't tell them the ringing wasn't the problem. It was the pattern hiding inside it. They kept me 2 nights. Every test came back normal except for the static in my head. One doctor asked if I wanted to see a counselor. I almost laughed. He wouldn't have understood that it wasn't in my head. It was near it. Close enough to touch the outline. When they discharged me, they gave me a form that said, "Fit for work in 2 weeks." I threw it away before leaving the building. Home felt quieter, but not clean. My apartment was smaller than I remembered, every corner packed with old equipment I swore I'd thrown out. The first night I sat on the couch and listened to the silence. It lasted exactly 26 hours. 2:03 in the morning. The old radio on the shelf came alive. It wasn't plugged in. The sound started as a hiss, the kind you get when tuning past a dead channel. Then a small, careful breath. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I watched the radio speaker cloth flutter once, like something exhaling from the inside. Frank. I waited for the next word. None came. Just the hiss returning, like a curtain falling. I sat there until dawn. When the sun hit the room, the static faded as if embarrassed. That was 4 nights ago. It hasn't missed a single one since. I've started recording again, not for proof, just for tracking. If it's a signal, it has a duration. If it's a haunting, it has rules. That's all I know how to do. Write it down until it makes sense, or stops pretending to. Rule 4. If the static answers you back, stop recording. I haven't stopped yet. Maybe I'm waiting for it to finish the sentence. There's a line I can't cross anymore, between what the station did to me and what I'm doing to myself by keeping this going. I can hear the voice now, even without the radio. It's learned the timing of my breath. Sometimes I think it waits for me to exhale before it starts, like it's polite. The clock says 1:59. I can feel it coming. The hum builds low through the walls. My recorder's red light is steady. My hands aren't. Frank, the inspection's not over. I know. That's the part nobody believes when I tell them. The calm. Fear burns out eventually. What's left is routine. I'm just trying to see how long the signal lasts. It's 2:03 now. The static just answered.